Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. I believe that we're ready to go, that this is it. My name is Lindi Conover Thompson, and I am here today to talk to you about the COVID-19 Respond, Recover, and Rebuild grants for CCO organizations. You should see my PowerPoint presentation in the background with some slides just to kind of help guide this. I want to let you know that there is a Q&A feature which should be towards the bottom ribbon of your Zoom screen. And there's a Q&A section, there's a Q&A button, and if you click that, then you can ask your questions and we will field those throughout the presentation. So there's that. Just want to do that housekeeping rule. Now I'll introduce myself. Again, I'm Lindi Conover Thompson, and I own the business EP Collaboration, and I have the distinct honor of working with nonprofit organizations who want to make an impact in their corner of the world. It's absolutely just a wonderful thing I get to do because of all of you wonderful people. Brad, I'm gonna just ask you, I know Brad is on here moderating. Can you just let me know that you guys can see everything and that you can hear everything okay? I know that we were asked today to just have a little bit of grace and patience because this is, of course, our first time doing a conference like this virtually. So thanks everybody for your patience. Brad, if you just want to pop it in the chat that you can hear me and that we're all good, that would be excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to, we can see and everything. Excellent. Great. I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Julie. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move on and just let you know what we're going to be covering today. So the purpose of this session is to go over each of the three types of grants that are available through the RRR funds and look at the eligibility, what expenses are eligible in each of these grants, and to help provide some ideas in case you're struggling with what to do and how to implement those things. We'll also go over how to complete the application, how to implement some of the projects, and about the reporting requirements. Now, there are also some things that I want to cover, including the purpose. Like, again, the purpose of this presentation is to help you develop ideas, implement these projects, have a good timeline, and be aware of those reporting requirements. But the purpose of this presentation is not to definitively tell you if a project is going to be approved or if any expenses within a project are going to be approved. I'm not able to answer any regulatory questions about this. We can't provide you with any updates on your application. And the other thing that I just want to make sure that you're aware of is that the Cherokee Nation Treasurer and Administration are going to have the final word on all of the applications. So again, our purpose today is just to discuss, to tell you a little bit more about the COVID-19 RRR grants. You've heard a lot about them so far. We've had a couple of different webinars about them so far. Chief and Tanya Johnson from Grant Services also talked about them this morning. So this is a great opportunity for us to do these wonderful things, but it is also really important that we're reporting properly as well. So with that, I want to let you know that at the end of each of the sections, I'm going to open it up for questions, and that's when you can pop your questions in the Q&A, and we'll be sure to answer them. If you've ever been in a session with me before, you know that I really like them to be very interactive. So this is going to be different for all of us. I've got a couple other sessions throughout the day, and we are going to make those as interactive as we possibly can in this format. But I just wanted to let you know that it's going to be a little bit different, obviously, than what a session with me normally runs like. Okay, so for these Respond, Recover, and Rebuild grants, there are three different programs that are available to community organizations. One of them is the Operations Grant, one is the Capital Grant, and one is for the At-Large Organization Response Grants. So first we're going to start with the operations. So the eligibility for this is that you have to be an organization in the 14 counties on the reservation. So this is for our local organizations. You can apply for up to $20,000 for operational support. Now, the expenses that can be covered in this particular grant, anything related to food security during the pandemic, PPE, which of course is personal protective equipment, virtual presentations. So if your organization is trying to do things that you would normally do together, but you can't do that because you're trying to social distance and you want to do it virtually, we can help with the cost of that. Paying bills for your community centers, possibly purchasing something like a generator to help with, again, food security. That is very important for our communities, that they have access to the food that they need, because a lot of our communities do live in food deserts. And again, most things related to food security and or the crisis response are things that would be eligible under this. Some of the ideas for projects or things that you could spend your funds on would be mask making supplies. Again, that's to help with the PPE, and sanitizers. Again, bills to keep the lights on, any kind of food distribution or things that might relate to that. With the mask making supplies, you can use funds to either buy the supplies for those masks and make them yourselves, if maybe someone in your organization is a really great seamstress and you want to be able to do that. I've made masks. I'm not a great seamstress. They're not terribly difficult to make. So those are some of the ideas for operations for that portion of the grant. Now I'm moving on to capital improvements. So this is a second eligible expense under the COVID-19 grants. The eligibility is that you must be a CCO participant in the 14 counties. Again, so this is just for our organizations that are here in the 14 counties. This can be for up to $40,000 for capital support. This particular grant is looking to support organizations in developing structures to support social distancing, cooler rooms, refrigerators and freezers, things like stoves or ovens, equipment needed for food distribution. And I want to make a note here that we prefer to use taro vendors. So I've just included that on this list as well. The reason that we're looking at these eligible expenses is, again, related to things like food security and basic needs during this crisis. So that's why structures to support social distancing or things like cooler rooms are eligible, because a cooler room or refrigerator or freezer help you to keep food fresh that then can be distributed throughout the community and to those in need who are impacted by COVID-19. So here are some ideas. Again, generators, oven, stove for food prep, critical building updates that you might need, refrigerators, etc. Now I'm going to talk about the at-large, and then after that, we're going to take a moment and pause for questions. So if you have any questions yet, go ahead and pop them in the Q&A. So the at-large grant is for CCO participants outside of the 14 counties. And this is for up to $2,000 for operational support. Now, I just want to make a quick note, because there has been a little bit of confusion, because I've talked to some of the organizations, and I just want to make it very clear that this $2,000 grant for support for at-large communities has nothing to do with the with other funds that you would normally get. So there's something about $1,000 that each organization gets for something else, and then there's also the $400 elder stipend, and that's completely separate as well. Both of those things are completely separate from this grant, but it's just been something that's gotten people a little bit confused. So I just want to make mention of that. Eligible expenses for at-large organizations are defined right here. Necessary expenditures to respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency. So you're like this guy, what exactly does that mean? So again, this is a lot of language that the administration needs to meet their regulatory requirements. They are dealing with federal funds here, federal emergency funds. Everybody just wants to make sure that things are spent according to the guidelines from the federal government. So we have to ask ourselves exactly what that's going to look like. Great. We have a question, and I will answer that here in just a moment. So thank you for putting that in there. So ideas for the at-large organization includes mask making supplies. Again, we talked about that. That's also an eligible expense under the operations part of the grant for the in-district folks. Purchasing COVID necessities. So that would be anything, again, like PPE, sanitizer, hand sanitizer, wipes, either to distribute throughout your community or to have if you are meeting in person and you need to be able to social distance. If you want to do a food distribution, a small scale food distribution within your own community, this would be an eligible expense. Scholarships that you have perhaps typically would raise money for and then provide scholarship dollars for members of your organization who are going to college, that would also be an eligible expense. Any sunk cost. So when I say sunk cost, what I mean is something that like maybe you had to put down a deposit for a room for the chief's visit or another meeting that you were going to have, and then you were no longer going to have that meeting because of COVID-19 and social distancing, and you were not able to get your deposit back. So you've got, $150 of sunk costs in that. That is something that could be reimbursed. Another one of the programs that a lot of folks are putting together is a grocery gift card giveaway. And again, this is something that I believe in-district and at-large communities can both apply for as well. And the grocery gift cards would be where you would purchase the gift card to a grocery store and distribute those to those who've been impacted by COVID-19. So we're going to go over some of the requirements to implement these projects, but I'm going to go ahead and pause for questions right now. Over here on the Q&A, so Arnetta has a couple of questions. She says, since the deadline for completion or use of the funds is in December, which it is, and we'll talk about that, what is the approximate timeline for application processing? Okay, and then the second question that she asks is, does the work need to be completed, completely finished, or can it be in process? As in, the weather impacts progress. So I'm going to take the first question, Arnetta, which is about the deadline for the completion or use of funds is December. Okay, so I think Arnetta has maybe submitted an application and is just waiting to understand what the process is and when they might hear back. I can't speak to that. Brad also says that this is, he's here, but he said that this is quite a process. We're moving things along as fast as we can to get the applications processed. However, we are in a global pandemic, and our Chief Hoskin has been wonderful about moving things forward as quickly as he can. So I'm sorry I don't have an exact answer for the timeline for processing applications, but I do know that the team is working as hard as they can. Brad, maybe if you want to, we can put this in what I call the parking lot. So just kind of set it over there, and if we need to come back to it and answer it more fully, perhaps we can. And the other question that Arnetta has is, does the work need to be completely finished, or can it be in process as if the weather impacts it, for example, which is a very real situation in Oklahoma, that the weather could impact the completion of a capital project, say to a building. So I'm going to have to default to Brad on that one. So Brad, maybe we can put that one in the parking lot and we can answer it towards the end of the session as well.
Do you want me to answer now, or you want me to wait?
Go ahead, Brad. Brad's going to take that question.
So what we have been told is that we need to have all receipts in by December 15th. So that would mean that whoever you're having do the work has issued you, an invoice saying that they've been paid. As far as the actual thing being completed, that's going to be between you and the contractor that's doing the work. I hope that answers it. We just need all the receipts in by that December deadline. in order to meet the requirements of the CARES Act.
Thank you, Brad. So don't go away yet. Just stay right there because we do have a couple other questions. Mariah asked, and I know Mariah is with one of the in-district organizations. She asked that they can apply for both the operations and the capital grant or only one. My understanding is that you are eligible to apply for both. Is that right, Brad?
Well, most people are if they have a actual structure that they're working on or Cherokee Nation community building. If they don't have a Cherokee Nation community building, then we can't do capital improvements on a building that's owned by somebody else. So say they're renting or leasing a space, we would have to look at those individually. Our focus for the capital improvements are for Cherokee Nation community buildings.
Excellent. Mariah, I hope that answered your question. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that one as answered. And then Cindy Witherspoon has a question. If we do a grocery gift card giveaway, how do we obtain recipients? Cindy, I'm going to leave this one up on the Q&A because we will be getting to that and in just a minute, and I think we'll answer your question. And if not, you can answer the question. I'll come back to it then. So that is the Q&A for this particular session, or for this particular section. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So the application, the actual application process, you have probably seen it. It's a very simple 2-page form that comes in a PDF and asks for some basic information about the organization. And then it requires a project summary, project budget, and signatures. So I'm going to go over this application piece by piece and just cover that. And then if we have any specific questions related to the application at the end of that, we can ask those questions. So let's see, here we are. This is the first piece of the application. So depending on what you're submitting it for, you're going to check one of these boxes. So again, the submit a separate application. So if you're an in-district organization and you are applying for both operations and capital, submit 2 separate applications and check which one you are. So if it's if you're trying to do something to your building, it's going to be a capital application. If you're not doing anything to your building, it's going to be operations. And of course, if you're an at-large organization, you'll select this one. You'll put the organization name, the community served, and you'll check either you're an in-district CCO organization or you're an at-large organization. And then you'll put your EIN there, which you should probably have through your 501c3 nonprofit status information, the date that you plan to submit the proposal or that you are submitting the proposal, and your tax status. Now, if you are a 501c3, great, you'll just click that. If maybe you've registered with the state, but you are not yet a 501c3, you would check this box and then explain what it is. Hopefully it's just a small explanation. So the next piece is very simple, organizational contact. So that's going to be the person that you want to stay in contact with CCO regarding this organization, the person that will be notified when the application is approved, or if it's not approved, or if there's something else that they need, something like that. So you'll put your name and your title as it is with the organization that you work with. Your address will be their phone, fax if you have that, and the best email to reach you at, and then the total amount requested, which should match the budget application, or the budget portion, which is right here towards the bottom. So whatever this total projected cost is should be the same amount that you're requesting here. So this is the bottom half of the application page, and you can see that there is 4 lines of a project summary here. Now, I've done grant writing for over 10 years, and this is absolutely the smallest project summary section I've ever seen. So it might be difficult for you to write your entire application request in 4 lines, but working with Brad and the other CCO team members, I know that they have allowed us to include up to 1 page of a project summary that might go into a little bit more detail. We don't want a novel. We're really trying to streamline this and make it as easy for you and for the team on the back end who has to approve everything. So we, again, don't want this to be huge, but if you need to explain a little bit more than 4 lines, that's okay. You can do that. I would probably just write, please see attachment, and then in a 1-page document in Excel, or I'm sorry, in Microsoft Word, you could type up your project summary, and then you want to convert it to a PDF and then attach it to your application so that there's not a ton of different attachments and there's not a ton of different pieces of information that the CCO team has to go through in order to find everything that they need. So if you can, try to put it, if you have Adobe Acrobat, there's a way that you are able to attach another PDF into that document. But if you can't do that, then just print everything out and scan it into a single PDF document. So then here on the budget, we would put COVID costs already incurred. So that would be something like those sunk costs that we talked about. Hey, we've already spent $150 on a deposit for a room. We can't get it back. That would go here. If your organization has already responded by making masks or doing food distribution, you've already incurred some costs, you would put that in this first line right here. Supplies and materials would go in the second line. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So this is more of your hardware, ovens, stoves, refrigerators, things like that. That would go in row C. Contracted services is going to be obviously any service that you pay for to help with your project. And then anything else is going to go under other. I have been working with a lot of the at-large groups to complete these applications. Most of their expenses are going in the other line unless they've already incurred some expense. Now, this is the part I know has been tripping everybody up. On the second page of the document, at the top of the page, there's some regulatory language that you need to pay attention to and just read so that you understand it. But then the signatures are going to go right here. So where it says CCO, whoever prepared the application, if it was your president, your chair, somebody else, some guy you found off the street, hopefully that's not who helped you develop your application, because he might not know that much about the program. But whoever it was that helped you prepare the application is going to sign right here and date right here. And the president is going to do the same, sign and date here. If it's the same person, 2 signatures. You don't have to fill out any of this stuff. Kevin, Trelina, and perhaps the Cherokee Nation Treasurer and someone from the administration will sign over here, so you don't have to worry about any of this. These, we do need a wet signature, so these cannot be typed. I know PDF or Adobe has this little function on it that says like sign and send, and it's really convenient, but we cannot, unfortunately, use typed signatures. They have to be wet signatures, so please be aware of that. And again, it's going to be the signature of the person who prepared the application and the signature of the president or chair. And if those are the same person, then they would sign it twice. When you are submitting this application, you can mail it here to P.O. Box 948, Tahlequah, Oklahoma 74465. Make sure it's addressed to Community and Cultural Outreach. If you are submitting it by mail, please do not put staples in it. That is just a big old hassle, and we have to digitize it anyway. And what ends up happening when you pull the staples out is it clogs up the copier. So we just don't, in all fairness to Brad and the team, please do not include staples. But if you are going to email it, which I believe is probably how it's preferred, if you have the option to do that, you'll email your completed application to CCO-grants@cherokee.org. They're only able to accept PDFs. And again, you can either use Adobe Acrobat to send that, or you can scan it in and create the PDF. If you have any troubles with that, just reach out to me, Lindi Conover. My information will be at the end of this slide, and it's also in the app, and it's all over the place right now. So if you need help just getting your PDF together, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. I can help you with that. So are there any questions about the application process, how to fill it out? Something, again, if you have any questions about the stuff that we already talked about, eligibility, you can go ahead and pop that in the chat. Cindy, I know that we still haven't gotten to your question, but I will answer that because I think it's coming up in the next section. It doesn't appear that we have any questions for this, which is fine. I will just gonna move along here. I'm gonna give it just another second. Okay, Cindy asks, where can we obtain an application? They have been emailed out to the representatives from all of the organizations. Brad, if there's a way to get the application online, like if there's somewhere to go, would you be able to maybe pop that link in the URL? And if it's not available, Cindy, if you want to email me your, if you want to give me your email in the chat, then I can make sure that you get an application. And anybody else who needs an application, just put your email address in the chat if you are able to do that, and we'll make sure you get an application. So I've answered that one. And Kelly asks, when you say wet signature, can it be copied and emailed, or do you need it sent through the mail? Okay. So for a wet signature, we don't need the original, but we do need a real signature. So it can't be typed or digitally inserted. It needs to be printed out and then signed and then scanned back in, but we don't have to have the originals. So I hope that is helpful, but it does need to be a wet signature, as in take a pen and sign it. So I hope that was helpful for that. And okay, if there are any other questions throughout this, just go ahead and pop it in there and we will get to it. So next, Lisa, okay, Lisa said she needed an application, and we will make sure it gets to you. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about requirements. Wait until you've gotten approval from CCO before you start expending funds, or before you assume that your expenses are approved, because we don't, as the treasurer has said, and Ms. Johnson said today earlier when we were talking about the COVID-19 grants, we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we have to pay this money back because we didn't spend it properly. So again, if you've already spent money, let's say for a deposit on a room that you were going to use prior to COVID-19 and you weren't able to get your deposit back, hold on to those receipts. They will probably be approved, but we don't want you to spend any money and then start to incur expenses before they have been approved. So again, if it was a sunk cost when this opportunity came about, that's one thing. Just hold on to your receipt and we probably can figure out a way to reimburse you if it's an eligible expense, but do not spend, don't start racking up a bill until all of your expenses are approved by Cherokee Nation. And then just follow what it was that you said you were going to do in your application. We want to make sure that, again, we are spending our funds properly and we're spending them on the things that we said we were going to, because if we spend outside of that and we're audited, we may have to return those funds. So whatever it is that you said you were going to do in your application and what you submitted in your budget is what you need to follow. Now I want to talk about the COVID-19 impact form. So this is a very simple one-page form that needs to be filled out by anybody who receives a gift card or another direct cash or equivalent payout. So for the most part, as I understand, most of these COVID impact forms are being used for things like grocery gift card giveaways. If somebody gets a gift card that was purchased through these funds, then they need to sign and date this form and make sure that it is checked yes. So they would say, I write your name, Lindi Conover Thompson, certify that I have been impacted by COVID-19 and am requesting assistance from the Cherokee Community Organization to respond to this impact. They would click yes and then sign and date. So it's a print, check yes, sign, and date. That's all that they have to do. Now, as the organization who's organizing this, you need to make sure that you are keeping all of these. And then once all of them have been collected, you've given away all your gift cards, then you're going to scan all of these in to a single document, a single PDF, and make sure that that is submitted to CCO. Again, you can use that CCO-grants, I think is the email. I can put it back up here in just a moment, but that's the that's going to be a critical part of your reporting to make sure that you actually spent the funds the way that you said you would. Oh, excuse me. So again, I want you to hold on to the originals. You're going to scan in the copies and make sure that the folks at CCO have that. You must have a copy for each person who received a gift card or cash equivalent payout. And again, you'll send it, there's that email, the cco-grants@cherokee.org. So I'm going to talk about receipts. I know we've got quite a few questions popping up, and I'm glad for that. So I'm going to answer those in just a moment. But let me talk a little bit more about this COVID impact form. Or I'm sorry, more requirements. Okay, so with your receipts, as you're making purchases, so let's say you've gotten your project approved, you've submitted the application, your project's been approved, and now you're actually executing your project. You're going to be purchasing things, which means you need to save your receipts. You need to save your receipts. All of your receipts are due to CCO by December 15th, 2020, but please, please, please get them in earlier as you have them. So it would be ideal if your projects were wrapped up way before December 15th and you were able to package your receipts and get them to the CCO team all at once. One of the things that's really difficult for the CCO team to track is if you've emailed in 7 different emails, these different pieces of the reporting. If you could send a single email that has all of your receipts scanned in, plus all of the COVID impact forms, that just, it's helpful for the team to keep it all in one place. But if you know, for example, you're not going to have all of your COVID impact forms until December 14th, we can kind of deal with that. We just don't want to be going into the holiday season with all of these things that we then have to sort out. So let's try to be kind to the people who are going to have to report all of this, because you'll have to remember that Cherokee Nation is not just doing grants for CCO, but they're doing grants across the entire nation. So there's going to be a lot of reporting that has to happen. So the sooner you can get those in a condensed, concise manner, the better off everybody's going to be, and we will thank you for it. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to the questions. So we have 5 open questions. Cindy still has her question about how do we find recipients for the gift cards, and we'll get there in just a minute. Lisa needs an application, so I'll make sure she gets one. Faye says, how do you get a copy of the COVID impact form? We can make that available to you as well. I'm sorry, I'm looking here at the Q&A and the chat. Okay. You must, something that's important is that you do have to be a participating CCO organization in order to receive the application and get funds, which you probably know. So just make sure that you're aware that if you're affiliated with a CCO organization or not, they're the only ones who are actually eligible. You have to be, your organization has to be affiliated with CCO. So I'm just gonna put that out there. Faye, we will get you a copy of the COVID impact form. I'm not sure if there's a way to put documents in the chat, but we can try to do that. Faye, if you would send me your email address, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of it if you need it. She's with the Illinois River Community Organization, and they do great work up there. So 2 thumbs up, Faye. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to implementation. And Lisa, we will answer your question about how the heck do you find people to give these gift cards away? Okay, whoops, excuse me. Okay, so implementing the project. Operations projects, we just want to make sure we're receipting everything. You would want to use email and social media to get the word out about any kind of projects that you're doing. You can ask for help from CCO to get the word out, so they can put it on their Facebook page if possible, and help you to get the word out in other ways. If you're doing anything that requires you doing those gift cards, again, you want to make sure that you get the COVID impact form for those to help with our reporting requirements. Brad said that he would email out the impact form tomorrow to all of the CCO organizations. Capital projects. If you're doing a capital project, just be cautious about the timeline. As Brad said earlier, all of the receipts are due to CCO by the 15th. And I believe that projects have to be completed. I have it here, it says December 31st, but I believe it's actually December 30th is when projects must be completed. So just be cautious about the timeline. I know it's September 1st tomorrow, and that doesn't leave a whole lot of room. And especially, as somebody said, what about if the weather is bad? We'll just do our best. My sense is that if you foresee that there's going to be a problem, the best thing that you can do is reach out to CCO, reach out to Kevin, to Brad, to Vince, myself, and say, hey, this just looks like it's not going to get done. We don't want to get there, but I would much rather know about it, and I'm sure that the whole team would much rather know about it and start developing a plan for how we're going to overcome that, as opposed to waiting until December 14th and finding out then that the process isn't going to be done. So just keep in communication about that. It's okay to make sure that you're holding people that you work with accountable. So we have to make sure that all of the organizations are held accountable, and so therefore you are in a position to make sure that any vendors that you're working with are also held accountable. Don't be afraid to hold people's feet to the fire. Again, just want to mention this, that Cherokee Nation would prefer to use tarot vendors for the different projects, but if we would like to have one bid for all major capital projects, at least one bid from tarot vendors. So that's an important piece of this as well. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the grocery gift card giveaway process. So again, if you're doing any project that requires or that involves you giving away gift cards or a cash equivalent, you have to get a COVID impact form from everyone who benefits from that. I have been working with some of the at-large organizations, and I'm sure we could apply this same process to anybody who was trying to do food distribution or grocery gift card giveaways in district. We have put together a Google form that's really simple. If you've not used Google Forms before, it's a really simple application or program. Basically, you just give a link, a URL to somebody, and they click on it, and it takes them to a web page where they can fill something out. And then whoever the owner of the form is able to look on the back end at all of the different answers. So Google creates an Excel spreadsheet for you that you can then use and manipulate it however you need, so that you're able to look and see who all needs it and how, their answers to all the different questions. So the way that we've thought about doing this, actually implementing this process, like how do we find people that need it, is to first send an email to your membership, and we can help you with language so that you make sure that you got the right language about this down. Send an email out to your membership and do the same thing with social media posts that just say, hey, we have an opportunity through Cherokee Nation to help our community. Anybody who has been impacted by COVID-19 can apply for our grocery gift cards. And some organizations are doing a first come, first serve basis. So until, if they say, okay, we're going to spend $1,500 on gift cards, and then they just go until that money is out. That's one way to do it. Another organization has said we're going to tier the amount that they get. So on their Google Forms, there's a space that says how many people are in your household, and for every additional person, there's another $25 up to $100. So if there's one person household, they get a $25 grocery gift card. If it is a two-person household, $50. If it's a three-person household, $75. And if it's four or more, $100 gift card to whatever grocery store is nearest to them. But each of those individuals would need to sign a COVID impact form. Brad, I'm going to ask you a question, and if you want to answer it now or later, that's fine. But in the case of a minor, let's say you're a mom and a dad and you have two kids, do the minors have to sign that, or would the parents just sign on their behalf, for example? That's a question that I'm not sure about.
I'm pretty sure it would be like head of household. So if it's, a mother and a father with 3 kids or something, I'm pretty sure it would just be head of household sign it. If it's a single, parent, then they would sign it. If it's a grandfather raising it, I think it would just be for the head of household to sign. I don't think you have to have every single person sign a sheet. They may note somewhere on there, or have them note somewhere on there how many people are in the household. Because I know it's also going to be important for numbers, how many folks we've served, how many households we've served with this opportunity. So
absolutely. Thanks for popping in there and for explaining that. I wasn't sure. It was a question that I had in the back of my head. So again, the process that we're doing, Cindy and others, for this grocery gift card giveaway process is to craft an email, send it out to the membership explaining that you have this opportunity available, and then allowing people to respond to you and say, yes, I do, I'm interested, I would like this, and then you can send them to the Google form to fill out. Same thing with social media, put together social media posts on Facebook. I think that's where most of our organizations are. I don't know of any that are on like Instagram, maybe some are on LinkedIn, but we can help you develop some language for that as well. And then you would just send them to this Google Forms and make sure that you're getting the COVID impact form back from them. So I believe that answered your question. Cindy, if you have any other questions about how to make that process happen, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with that. My email is on these slides, as well as the application, the app for this program, for this session. Okay, Kelly has a question. Can you give another example or two of other things that the COVID impact form would be used for? As far as I know, Brad, I'm gonna, if you have anything you wanna add to this, go right ahead. But Kelly, really the only things that I can think of that the COVID impact form are going to be used for are those gift cards or cash equivalent payouts. But I don't think we're not giving away cash. So I don't really know that that's going to be applicable. So I think that for the most part, it's just the grocery gift cards, unless Brad has anything that he wants to add to that. And then Arnetta had another question, and Brad might be able to kind of tag off of this one. But her question is, where can we find tarot vendors? So I know Brad's got a little bit of information about that. So I'm gonna hand it over to Brad now that he just went off.
I'm back. Sorry, I was answering somebody's question here. So you're talking about other instances that there may be use for the impact form.
Yes,
anytime you are giving money, services, cards to individuals, there needs to be an impact form. But
If there,
I'm like Lindy. I don't know of anything other than food or food gift cards um, that are eligible for that. I have not gotten any word that anything else is eligible for individual assistance. Um, I don't think we're paying people's, electric bills or anything like that. Um, but that would be a question for the treasurer for us to clarify. So right now, anytime you're giving an individual something or anything of monetary value out of this fund, they need to fill out an impact form.
would that include, okay, so if somebody's doing, if they're coming through your food distribution, if you're doing a food distribution with your community organization, do they need to have the COVID impact forms for just food distribution as well?
Um, if they purchased the food with the money they got from this grant, yes. If it's a
Okay.
Cherokee Nation food distribution that Cherokee Nation's running, then no.
Okay.
But anytime you're giving something away that you purchased with these grant funds, they need to fill out the impact form.
Excellent. Okay, that helps, and I think that clarifies for some folks. So Kelly, I've answered your question. Now, Brad, we've got the question about taro vendors.
There is a place on the Cherokee Nation website, and I'll try to find it real quick, that has a place where you can type in what services you're looking for, and it will pop up taro vendors. Let me see if I can find that real quick. When I do find that, I will put it in the chat box.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. We appreciate you. All righty. So I think that answered that question. And just double check here. So we are, okay, hey, we're actually really good on time. So we have 8 minutes left in the session, I believe. If you have any questions about this presentation, email me, Lindi Conover. You can call me. I've got it listed here. Savannah and Vince, who are staff of CCO, they are also available to help answer any program related questions. If you have a question about whether something is an eligible expense or if you need a COVID impact form for it, the best thing to do is to go ahead and ask Vince, Savannah, me, Brad, Kevin. We'd much rather have the answer and know what we're supposed to do as opposed to just wing it, hope that that's the right answer. Again, the likelihood that Cherokee Nation will be audited for receiving these funds is very, very high. It's almost certain that we'll be audited. We don't want to have to return any of these funds, especially because we know that these projects are helping people in our community. So just if you have a question, when in doubt, ask the CCO team. And if we don't know, we will find the answer. Something that I want to just put out there as we've been chatting is that this is a process. This is something that's taking a while to distribute, but we're working as fast as we can. And we know that you're going to do great work with these funds, but we just want to make sure that we are following all of the reporting requirements that are necessary and that we're doing everything the right way. If there are any final questions for anything that we discussed today, you've still got a few minutes to pop them in the chat. And if you think of it tonight at 2 a.m. and you'd rather just email us, you can certainly do that too. Please don't call me at 2 a.m. I probably won't answer. So I think that's it, unless Brett has anything he wants to say. We don't have any questions in the chat. I do have a couple of emails that I know we need to send applications to, so we can certainly do that. And I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and just say thank you to everybody for taking your time to come to this session today, and hope it's great. You'll do wonderful work out there.